Welcome to FPTV, and this is FPTV new releases with the mighty Kieron Gillen. How are you, mate?
Howdy. I'm very well. Thank you for having us.
Oh, it is absolutely my pleasure. So, we're extremely excited about your new Eternals book, and which is available for pre-order from the link attached to this interview. What can you tell us about it, mate?
I mean, it is the Eternals. It's like I sort of only realised that Marvel. I haven't done anything in the Marvel universe for like 5 years, so it's like it feels weird because I was doing Star Wars stuff, but I genuinely have had a gap. And like CB basically got me on the phone and sort of, are you interested in Eternals? And I sat back and I thought, actually, yeah, this sounds fun. I mean, the thing about Eternals is, it's something I've never done before. Like Eternals is obviously a solo Jack Kirby creation with a really interesting history because it was created as its own thing. It was published by Marvel, but it wasn't part of the Marvel universe. Then they folded it in, and that's always created a certain tension. It's like got so many berserk ideas in there. It's kind of got this it's very clearly inspired by Chariot of the Gods, the 1970s idea that gods maybe could have been aliens, that kind of vibe. And obviously the movie's coming out, so that basically I'm always as a writer looking for a new challenge. So for me, it's like I've never taken an old property that hasn't been around as much. Like the last major Eternals run was the Gaiman Junior one, which was great. And I've never done that complete polish up and try to make it, take an old car, change the engine bits. Never done that before, and something I've always wanted to do. And also doing something which, of course, is going to have a lot of eyes of it because of the movie. To be able to do something that actually is trying to put the entire comic industry's best foot forward in terms of like, here's an amazing Eternals book which is entirely embedded in the Marvel universe, but completely a clean entry point that explains why on earth you should care about these characters. And basically, what I've kind of done was really analyze why I don't think the Eternals have ever been the enormous seller that okay, what's the Eternals missing, and what can you take from that's already in the Eternals to make that work? So it's a lot like partially it's finding the Eternals niche, because the thing is about the Eternals is they were originally, as you said, outside the Marvel universe, and of course in a universe where gods actually exist, there's a tension there, so they can't just be mistaken for gods in a universe where there are gods, because that's not as cool.
Yeah.
So they need to really dig into what Eternals are, and I got this idea that everyone needs their own sort of job to do, and for me it's like, okay, what are Eternals? And they're actually, even looking at the original story, they were created by the Celestials. They're put on Earth. They're in eternal war against the deviants who are mistaken for devils. They're eternal and changing, very powerful. Questionable whether they have free will or not. And you think about it, they're not really gods. What they are is angels. So the idea of me, like, they are the Eternals, are basically the angels of Earth. They are the quote unquote guardian angels, and their basic job is to stop the deviants from destroying everything. There's a lot more inside there because I can't make anything simple. But the idea was they're like a species of Buffy the Vampire Slayers, trapped in eternal war against a species of vampires. That's the kind of high concept of what the background is. And of course, being me, I've really leaned into the scale of it. Like I've taken the entire of the eternal history in the Marvel universe and turned it into this Tolkien-esque epic in terms of, okay, we have this. You've got a proper timeline with wars and where people came from and so on and so forth. And and that all informs the story, but isn't the story. In the same way, if you read Lord of the Rings, it's like, yes, Tolkien clearly knew that the first war against Morgoth, and that impacts it. Yes. And it just gives it a kind of depth, even though that's not what the story's about. And I'm trying to do that with Eternals in terms of a story about the society of eternal beings and their arguments and their Game of Thrones-esque disagreements with this large scope. That's the kind of the high concept, I guess.
That's why I think. Sorry, carry on. No, please.
The other thing that the Eternals is lacking is the tragedy. So there's a kind of definitely. I'm very into the Marvel universe of the Eternals in terms of like what's the Peter Parker of them, what's the Daredevil of them. So like the sad notes that make you kind of realize, oh no, that's awful. But as much as that's the thing about Marvel, it's always a power fantasy, but at the same time, it's also a morality tale. And it's also as in the weight of the crown, if you will. Anyway, that's the Eternals.
No, that's fantastic. I cannot wait to. That's made me very excited to read the book, I have to say. I think one of the reasons for me why you're a great fit with this, because you've got some world building history with Marvel, and you know your I think your approach is just right for this book. Why I personally think Eternals is a plum assignment, and I say this as a huge Kirby fan, is because it's kind of second rank Kirby, yeah, and it's kind of like Steven Soderbergh remaking Ocean's 11, right? The original Ocean's 11 has got all this fantastic imagery, but if you ever sit down and watch the movie, it's actually not very good. And so therefore, what you know, what it's not Kirby on his A game. It's something that's completely improvable. It's got all that Kirby genius to it, but I think there's it can definitely be refined, improved, extended, and enriched. And that's what I'm sure you're going to be able to do. And from the sounds of it, that's the kind of thing that you've got in mind.
The thing about Kirby, I mean, you know, it's like, I just say it is second run Kirby in that way. But the reason why I think it is second run is if you compare to say like the New Gods or like most Kirby, like New Gods is a complete mythology, whilst with Eternals I think he was still building the Eternals. If you read the Eternals run, he's still introducing new characters. It's like it's not even the vision isn't complete yet, and that's I think that's the flaw of Eternals. It's incomplete, and so at least in some ways, like my approach has been okay. Let's really look at it because like you can sort of see like he's aware of the problems because he's made a species of good guys and a species of bad guys, and he's and he immediately think you can see Kirby reject that idea. Because it immediately puts the good bad guy and the bad good guy, and in terms of like life, Kirby is an incredible moral sense beneath it, and he's still playing with what the theory is. So much of me was like looking at the Kirby and seeing where could he have took it, what are the subtext here, what are the ideas he's interested in, and of course it can only be done in it can only ever be done in my style, but at the same time like really trying to think about what would Kirby do. I think I say this is actually something I quite regularly say when doing work for hire. It's like you asked, what would Jack Kirby do? And the thing for my answer to that question is always make up something new. So, like, despite the fact I'm completely basing it on like growing out of the Kirby and all the stuff that's happened afterwards, it's also a thing of invention. Like, one of my core, like the original myth of the Eternals is the Celestials made 100 Eternals and 100 Deviants and then left. And that's the core thing. And one of the things I'm doing is, whilst the Deviants, like they breed and they're all species of one. That's the idea for them. The Eternals have never bred. There's only ever 100 of them. So what I've done is I've collected every single Eternal and we've ever used in the Marvel, and I've made up the other 40. Right. So like, and we've got in issue 1, you've got a list of all the Eternals, and that's all the Eternals that there ever been, and they've changed shape and all that kind of stuff. So like, I've made up like basically another 40 characters, and to reinvent, as part of this thing.
And that's a very Kirby thing to do as well, mate.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. It's like it's absolutely trying to, in that spirit of like, a universe on a page. Like you turn a Kirby page, and it's like there's a whole world of so much invention there, and that's what you're trying to live up to in your own style. It's Kirby. You cannot praise him enough.
How does it feel to be attached to a project that's really the centerpiece of the next wave of what they're doing with the MCU?
It's tricky. Like, it's nice for a start. I mean, I do not object to the eyes on the project, but that's not the weird thing is that's not where the pressure is for me. Like, I memean, I have done accessible books for like for an audience before. Like stuff like Wiccan Divine when Die or here's a new mythology. I'm introducing it to you. The bit that is intimidating is actually just the creative challenge. It is more the Kirby in terms of like I'm taking these Kirby ideas that's been played with by multiple people. Like, and we barely mentioned Gaiman, and Gaiman is a huge influence on me, and B, a towering figure in the industry. So like there's real interesting figures to sort of play with here. That's the bit that more bugs me. And also it's like my return to the Marvel Universe. It's a bit like I've been away for 5 years. That I want to come in and be good. You know what I mean? In terms of like it's the it's in the movie when the doors slam open and it's like, "Hello, darlings, I'm here." That's always been the pressure for me. I always need it to be good a bit too much, and that's fun. And the thing is, I'm working with Esad.
Of course.
I was in before I knew it'd be with Esad, and when I heard it was going to be with him, like there's something very complimentary about Esad saying, "Oh yeah, I'm interested in working with Kieron," because he's one of my favorite artists. He's for me the best working fantasy comic artist of today. He's got a way of the vista. He creates vistas and scale, but he's also very good at solidity. So in other words, he's good at the mythic, but he's also good at grounding the mythic. And you think, oh yeah, that's the place. So we've got these underground cities and hidden between molecules and whatever, where the Eternals live. And we've also, which feel utterly credible. We've also got New York, you know, and we've also got like 3,000 years ago with a saber-toothed tiger or whatever. And all this feels like of one breath. So, you know, that just doing it with Essad is definitely a joy. And there's like, we're also doing my kind of, since we're post Hickman X-Men books, we're doing like data page stuff, which is like part of the way I get the scale of it. You know, like here's a world, we'll download a page of stuff, we'll download, you know, the 100 characters we've got or whatever. Yeah, I'm working with Hand in Glove Clayton Cowles, who's the letterer on almost all my books, actually, Clayton letters. And this is the most intense collaboration I've done with him as well. So that's a lot of fun too. So for me, it's like a big Marvel book, or in fact, any big book, when you can sort of get a group of people who really want to do it and push it as hard as they can. That's the pressure. And it's trying to make it as good as it can be, I guess. That's always the pressure.
I really can't wait. And thanks so much for sharing that with us. I think it's a tremendously exciting project. This has been FPTV New Releases, and we have been talking to the mighty Kieron Gillen about Eternals issue 1, which is available for pre-order now. It's going to be fantastic. Based on that description, I can't wait to read the book. And also, if you want to get into some Eternals history, the monster-size omnibus edition of Jack Kirby's Eternals is also available for pre-order. Thank you very much, mate. Take care.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. See you soon.